Okay, well, we have this great panel here, ready to answer your questions. And before we did that, though, I thought it might be fun just to kind of get an idea about what your reaction was to the film. You know, kind of what did you think of it? Sort of what things came up for you? Did you have an emotional response to anything that came up in the movie? Does anybody have anything that they wanted to share?
Does the movie reflect more?
Okay, so does the movie reflect more of an insecurity or like some sort of weak-mindedness rather than, I don't know, just because I feel like, you know, capitalism is capitalism and there's a demand for something, of course, to continue, but I don't know. So I guess my question is, how do you combat this sort of mentality when it's at the end of it, it's like a personal thing, where it's like you can't brainwash people in the other direction. But you know, it's like, so the demand is still there, and so it's like you can't force people to consume, you know, things that are, you know, counter, you know, what the whole beauty thing, you know. So I guess my question is, what's your opinion on that? Is it a weak-mindedness, or is it like, I don't know?
Well, I guess with this little picking this up here, I might have misheard your question, so I'll just make sure I heard it right. Are you saying that you have all these industries working very hard to kind of brainwash us into thinking that we need these products, right, to be good enough or enough? And so what do you do about that?
Yeah, because I feel like it's like a personal thing. It's like you can't, you know, it's like you can't I don't know, it's like you have to like then it's like it has to be like an individual journey. You can't, I don't know, you can't combat it like where it's like I don't know, you can't combat it where it's like you just give people this magic pill and then all of a sudden people just, you know, all of a sudden they don't believe in, you know, in the whole, I don't know, the whole beauty, you know, standard of beauty.
I have a thought, but I kind of wanted to know if anybody else wanted to respond, and it could be a panelist, or it could be someone else from the audience.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, yeah, it's not like we're just automatically brainwashed right into getting these products, but really, over time, we have become like that. Not every single person has, right? Because you're free to make your own choices. And if you do that, you're awesome because you're one of the few. But I think that in society as a whole, especially in the Western world, we are so used to these even subliminal, you know, messages that this is what we're supposed to buy to look like this, and if you look like this, you'll be more accepted in the world, right? And that's trickled over to the Eastern world, and so yeah, the whole point, you know, is to be your own advocate for change and to not buy these products and to focus more on the inner, and that's what really matters, and that's what we're hoping for, that's what we're working towards. But over the past 100 years, it's definitely become such, you know, a capitalist society. This is what you're supposed to buy because that's the only way to be happy. And it's done so much, from the billboards to ways you don't even expect, you know, ways you don't even realize that you are being brainwashed. Because we see, so I forget what the number was, but it was something like thousands and thousands of images a day you're subjected to. You know, so even little kids, little babies, as they, like by the time they're 2 years old, they see all these images and they're conditioned to think that way. I mean, I know I have a nephew who's 2, and he already knew how to use the iPad and looking at all of these images already, and you know, knew what things were. And I'm like, how do you even know what that, you know, what that model is wearing? But you know, they know already, and it's getting worse as technology progresses, right? So yeah, but
well, because I see this lack of like connectedness. Most people, I don't know, we were living in like a very like secular society, so nowadays, like people, back in the day, you would have like, support from your religious group or, some sort of community or your own culture, but nowadays, like everybody's becoming very individualistic, and so, like, there's nowhere to gain that, or, have that support. Because most people, I feel like if you have that family support and that whole community, either through your religion or, I don't think it would be like that hard to like, be brainwashed, you could say. Maybe, it's a maybe, I don't know.
I totally agree. Can you hear me? I totally agree, and I actually think it's very much by design. I kind of feel that what they do is, as our society becomes less connected to those institutions, families that keep us strong, that keep us grounded, that keep us reminded where our real value comes from, then it creates this moment. And these advertisers manipulate and take advantage of that opening to use their products as a way to reassure us. If you don't feel good about yourself, here, have this. If you only wear these clothes or this makeup, then people will like you and look up to you. And I think that is very much by design. But I think that there is a way that you can combat it. I know it seems like a mountain of work just to stand up to like Revlon, L'Oreal, the fashion industry. But think about this. Every day you post pictures to social media, right? Everybody here does it. Do you edit that photo before you post it?
I know that that's a rhetorical question, but I myself take lots of pictures, not of myself, but mostly because I'm an aspiring photographer. I take photos of models, freelance models, and I use a lot of filters. And social media, especially Instagram, has a lot of filters. There's a lot of filters to choose from, and I try to create an awareness about having hashtag no filter instead of using a lot of filters.
See, that's one way. And I bet other people here do things in their own way.
Well, I think even in the case of like Instagram, and I don't know if any of you know this, but a lot of people are actually paid to use certain products by, I don't know, that would be like the 50, the waist trainers. Yeah, so what you're looking at. Exactly. Oh, it's so, distorted from reality. I think the film talked at the end about putting our money where our true values are, and maybe it just takes going back to, what are those values, family, so, yeah.
I wanted to add to that what she said about the products, because I've noticed that a lot of the products that are on Instagram are all geared towards girls for the most part. I know this tea called Fit Tea or like flat tummy tea, and then the waist trainers to make, and it's all to like achieve this standard or this body or like the ideal image of like a perfect body or whatever. So I think that's interesting that it's all geared towards growth. And it's used by celebrities too, so it makes us feel like, they use it and it actually works. So it's just once again showing that, reality, the perception of something that's not reality.
Now look, right, so we're talking about making changes and using social media for the greater good, right? So you can actually change anything that you want to. For example, on Friday, myself with Assembly Member Mark Levine in California, I was really excited about this. I know that I told him right away. In the modeling industry, right, we just introduced a bill that is going to require all of modeling agencies in California to have their models get health checkups 3 times a year. And this is huge. This is the first time in America. This is a big deal, because this is going to require all the models to get health checkups, to get nutrition counseling. And so if they don't do that, the agencies are going to get fined a lot of money. So this is really serious stuff. This is not just, saying that they're going to do something. These are actual changes. And this comes right on the law that was passed in France. How many of you know about that? Where there was a law recently passed in France banning too thin models. And how we did that is, I have been working on this for a long time, and just being an advocate. So if there's something you really want changed, you can change it. Just work on it. Use your voice. Use social media. Contact, your local member of government and speak up, because you can be your biggest advocate. I mean, we're the people, right? And we hold the most power. Like they were saying, the advertisers have all the money, but we spend the money. And we have the power to use our voice. So your voice is so important. I really want to put that in your head. Because when I found out on Friday, I was like screaming, just so excited. It was such a big deal in history. This opens the door for other states to follow through, and this opens the door for education, right? And it's not just for the models, but what happens when models are allowed to be healthier? This has an effect on society, right? Because when models are healthier, when models are portraying a healthier image, then we're allowed to bring in healthier size models. We're allowed to bring in more of a role model instead of just someone who is really thin in front of the camera. And so what I think is important is for us to focus on being role models in our community.
Well, I'm still interested in finding out. I love it, the hashtag filters. That's an excellent idea, and that's one thing you can do. There's so many different things that we can do. Has anybody ever heard the words fat shaming? All right, does everybody know what that means, right? So if you wanted to change things, what would you do? What if you heard someone fat shaming themselves or someone else? What would you do?
Think about the positive in your looks, because I think the thing is everyone wants to be like the ideal, like just perfect, beautiful and gorgeous, whatever. But it's like we're all gonna get old one day too. I think people forget that, and it's like what you said earlier. The inside is what matters the most. The outside matters, don't get me wrong, but to a certain extent. So if I see somebody that is fat shaming themselves, I would tell them to think in a positive manner about all the great things that they have to offer. Just look at the positive things that they do have, and to not fat shame themselves, because there's so many things that you can do and you can change in your lifestyle. If you feel a certain way about something, you can make a change for it. So it wouldn't fix anything fat shaming yourself.
So that's just one idea. Another thing is we're bombarded, like Nikki said, with thousands of messages every day. And since so many of them are visual, it's skewed our entire perspective to value ourselves simply by the way that we live. Is that really where our value comes from? Or how we look? Is that what it's really about? Do you love someone? Do you love them simply because of the way they look? I want to hear some yeah.
Yeah.
You have
But,
to be.
but yeah, how many of you do feel pressure, like when you leave your significant other? When you go out into the world, do you feel pressured by the way that you look, or not really? Are you feeling this pressure?
Personally, I think it just varies on situations and circumstances, just depending on the environment. Sometimes, you know, there's a number of reasons why we have to appear a certain way, whether it's for professionalism or not. But as students, you know, we represent our campus, and then so it just varies. I feel in different situations. So, for instance, if we were to go apply for a professional job, then physical appearance does come into play because they judge you based on what they see initially, and then after that, then your true values, you know, then later exist. So I think it just varies for certain situations.
So you feel that your outward appearance is more valued than what you have to offer?
No, not necessarily, but it just takes, you know, that's like a progress, like, you know, you just won't, yeah, definitely, it just takes time to get to know those values of an individual, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they should value just for your image, but also what's internal, and not just external. It just varies, like I said, certain circumstances. Okay.
That's what you were going to say?
Other questions?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like that in every career. I mean, obviously, especially it was like that in the modeling career, but sadly, I mean, like they were saying in the video in Lebanon and counting, right? They put in the ad, you must be attractive. Instead of valuing what you can actually do, who you are as a person, you know, even your kindness or even getting to know you, it's, no, we just want you to look a certain way. And so how does that make you feel, right, as a person when you are going to apply for a job? It makes you feel severely devalued. It makes you feel like an object. And what does that do to you over time, right? It's extremely degrading. And yet, are we just supposed to smile and say, oh, it's okay, right? No, it's not okay. It's not okay. So what is the solution?
Well, I have a couple questions, 3 questions. Is there like a safeguard for like, let's say business or in, like, I don't know, when you're applying for a job, is there some sort of safeguard in like not being judged by your appearance and but actually by your traits, or is there a law that protects people from being, I guess, you know, discriminated, I guess, by your beauty? And then, and then my second question is this like a rich problem or poor people's problem? I don't know, because I don't know, if you have high income, you can, you know, you have the money to, you know, to buy the products. And if, you know, you're poor, maybe your kids are not, you know, maybe not along with you, but so they're more influenced by television, so maybe it could be a poor people's problem and a rich people's problem, but or is there a class group that, you know, is more susceptible to these types of beauty standards? And my third question would be, do you advocate like use of hallucinogenics or no? Oh, I guess because it applies to the whole dissolving of the whole dominator culture, according to Terrence McKenna.
So you asked about if there's a certain rule that like, did you ask that if there's a certain rule that covers you from being like judged or whatever when you're going to a job? I think that you're judged regardless because it's human nature to judge, and the moment you see somebody, you judge them based off their looks, you know, and it's not off of like bad intention, like I don't need to know you to judge you. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to understand that no matter where you go, you will be judged because that's the first thing people see. You don't see the person's kindness the first time. You know, obviously if you meet them, but everyone's looking at your physical appearance. So you are judged by it regardless, I feel. But it's up to you to really value yourself to a certain extent that doesn't bother you if people judge you based on your looks. Like there's a point that you just really should not care and you should just value who you are, your parents' genetics, and be happy with who you are. So I think you're gonna be judged regardless, wherever you go. You just have to be aware and happy and love yourself, value yourself, so other people value you.
I think, yes, totally. I totally agree with her in the sense that, you know, being judged, particularly when you're applying for a job, you know, it kind of sets that up as a paradigm that multiple people all applying for one position. So you have to critique and compare them to see who's the best candidate. So I think that kind of environment kind of sets that up where it's more important than maybe some other ones. But I think your question specifically, is it illegal to do that? I think that kind of discrimination could be illegal in the sense that you might be able to sue for damages, right, for loss of wages in a civil suit. However, I think like the problem will come in the fact that those kind of things are so difficult to prove because if someone doesn't like you, this is true for prejudice, bias, discrimination too. Even if they don't like that one thing about you, they won't necessarily say that's what they don't like about you. They will just say, oh, they really weren't prepared for this interview, or I didn't really like that answer to that question. So
It's hard to tell.
it's hard to tell.
Are there jobs that are your qualifications obviously higher than yours, or does it depend on certain positions in the auto, obviously?
Yes, there are certain jobs that require certain things, like modeling. It has a certain amount of criteria by which they choose select people, and the same is true for any sort of performance type job.
Like ballet, sports.
And even I know that there was a really famous case, and it involved the Hooters restaurant about a male employee wanting to get hired at that restaurant, and so it went like to the Supreme Court. And then the end result was that yes, that restaurant has the right to not hire him and hire a server in his place because it is in line with the restaurant's marketing policy. So I forgot the second question.
Well, what social economic classes is this one about?
That's a very complex question. I'm sure other people here might be able to answer parts of it. But when you were asking it, sort of several thoughts came to my mind. Number one, I think that the pressure that we saw set up here, sort of like very, very few people are immune to that. The way they experience it might be very different. They use the word aspirational. So for someone who comes from a humble socioeconomic background, someone who doesn't have a lot of access to some of the fancy products that they see, when those kids go to school, they'll look around at their peers, see the ones that can afford it, and develop this sort of, I wish that were me, that someday I'm going to be able to get that. Right? So, but then at the other end of the spectrum, that is really, really high SES, you see something very similar, where they're the same victims of the same system. The pressure just feels very different. It's like, who has the biggest jet? Where the, what school do your children go to? Is your car 2 years old, or is it the brand newest one? Is your yacht 100 feet longer than the neighbor's yacht? Did you get the timeshare in the Hamptons? It is really competitive. So it's across the board in every socioeconomic class. It just may manifest itself actually very graciously agreed to share their story of how some of these things actually played out. So if it was just a minute, I'd like to give them some space to do that.
Well, obviously, I feel a little nervous because I've never talked in this sort of setting about this. Obviously, confided in family and close friends. But Cheryl, actually, from the Hope and Wellness Center, approached me last semester about coming and speaking, and I was so nervous about it, but I really just felt called to be here in any way that I could, and I'm really honored to be sitting next to some great people here today. In regards to my eating disorder story, it kind of started my last year of high school. It was a very exciting time for me because I was graduating and I had so many opportunities available to me. I was applying to all sorts of colleges, but at the same time it was a very kind of nerve-wracking time. I didn't know, really what major I was going to choose when I went to college or what career path I was going to pursue. And I think I was really afraid too of not being able to form friendships that I did in high school and college. And being a commuter student and going here, I wouldn't have had the experience of living in the dorms and, I guess forming that strong social group that I, cherished in high school. And I would say those were kind of the primary things that triggered my eating disorder, which is specifically bulimia. For those that don't know what that is, or don't know the behaviors of somebody that has bulimia, it's basically characterized by purging, laxative use, diet pill use, excessive exercising. So those were all kind of things that gradually progressed in a series of stages. I kind of started to, at first, with exercising, I would, I bought a gym membership, but that kind of progressed to me over-exercising, and, I would spend hours before I went to bed in my room, doing, crunches, trying to, in the hopes that the next day I'd wake up and I would be, 1 pound or a half a pound, skinnier or way, less. In terms of my diet, I started kind of trying to eat better, but that kind of progressed to, more restrictive behaviors. I would limit myself to like 500 calories a day, which many of you know that's like absolutely horrible. I would, restrict out entire food groups like proteins, healthy fats, and I would supplement for doing that. And then kind of the purging kind of started to happen. At first I started to kind of chew things and spit it out, and that kind of progressed to full-on purging, and I would do this everywhere, at my house, in the shower. I can remember several times doing it here at CSU San Marcos on my breaks. So, it lasted for about 3 years, and I had, a family that was incredibly supportive and able to push me to really try to better myself. My sister's actually here tonight in support, so she was, such a big part of me seeking recovery. But it is, and as you kind of talked about, with changing media, it's an extremely difficult process, and it's not going to happen overnight. It took a lot of time, and it took a lot of falling down for me to get back up, and my recovery was very multi-dimensional as well. I went on, medication to kind of manage my depression and anxiety. Started seeing an eating disorder specialist and going to the doctor more often. And going to various counselors. So, I would have never, if you would have asked me 4 years ago imagined myself being here tonight, and there were so many different things that really saved me, and one of them was interning at the Hope and Wellness Center. I'll never forget my interview there, like feeling like, man, I'm gonna educate students about how to be healthy when, I have this problem, and that was really so instrumental in getting me the help I needed, because I not only, was able to help students in, different areas, but I was able to really educate myself. If I was to get any advice, maybe if you know somebody that's experiencing an eating disorder, or if you're experiencing one yourself, don't give up, and there's definitely hope, and there's so many resources available to you, especially if you're a student. Go to the Hope and Wellness Center and Student Health and Counseling Services. There are so many great people. Dr. Carter, I've had the opportunity to meet, Cheryl, Kathy. It's totally possible, I promise you that. And living example is me standing here. So, yeah.
I'm proud of her. So my eating disorder situation happened when I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade, so wow, it was like 9 years ago. But basically, I came into elementary school. I'm Venezuelan. I'm full Venezuelan. The women in Venezuela are very curvy. My family is very curvy. I didn't understand what it meant to have hips or curves when I was younger, and I was constantly, not only by the media, but also surrounded by girls that would pick on me because of my weight. And I don't know if you all remember in elementary when they would like line you up to like weigh you in front of everyone, like they would like weigh you, and so that was super humiliating for me because I was always the girl that was like in the hundreds or whatever, and everyone else would be below that. So I always felt like I wasn't good enough, one, and I wasn't thin enough, two, and I thought that that was the reason boys didn't like me. So that's why I used to watch America's Next Top Model, which was one of my favorite shows growing up, and I would see how skinny they were, and I would see how, all the advertisements, all the girls were skinny, and that was what was beautiful. So, of course, being the little girl that I was, trying to be that, I started making myself throw up, and I started losing weight excessively, like ridiculous, to the point that my mom ended up finding out when I like fainted at school, and then they had to call her and stuff. But other than that, I would lie to her and tell her that like I ate already at school, but I really didn't. I would like starve myself. So, and it was all because I wanted to fit in. One, I wanted to fit in, and I didn't feel beautiful. I always felt like I was overweight. But in reality, I just had big thighs and I was curvy. So I didn't understand that at the time. And it wasn't until like I went to counseling and like my mom really told me, like explained to me why I'm curvy and why, I'm the way I am, that I actually started like valuing it. And once I got to middle school, it totally like shifted it, like my whole attitude and my confidence. And ever since then, it's been history. But I do know, even when I was little, like it was a long time ago, but I still remember the way I felt, and it was terrible. Like feeling like you don't fit in, feeling like you're not meeting the beauty standard, feeling, constantly that you have to try extra to fit in is terrible. So I would wish upon everybody, and like Carolyn said, there is a lot of resources not only on campus. I mean, on campus alone we have a bunch, but off campus too. Look for support with your friends. You're not alone, definitely not alone. So.
Thank you. You are very inspiring. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Well, I lived in a home. My parents were divorced when I was 2 years old, and my mother, who was adopted, she was half Cuban. She got remarried to my stepfather, and there was a lot of trauma and turbulence in my home. I experienced things that a child really shouldn't experience. You know, there was a lot of physical abuse and verbal abuse and then sexual abuse by my stepfather and my mother. And my mother had what was called dissociative identity disorder. I don't know if any of you know what that is. And bipolar disorder, which was not her fault, right? But it made growing up really, really difficult. Because when you're a child and you go through things like that, you feel like you have nobody to turn to, right? So when I was 8 years old and I experienced sexual abuse, I turned to food. And I developed binge eating disorder first, and then a couple of years later, that turned into bulimia. And bulimia was like my best friend, right? I was addicted right away. And how I knew what bulimia was I had heard my mother actually doing it, and I heard at school some girls talking about it in the bathroom. So I tried it, and from the very beginning, I was hooked. So I partook in those behaviors every day until I was in my mid-20s. And I felt terrible about myself because of the abuse that I had gone through. And more than anything, I think I just wanted to be loved and accepted, which is what every child, it's a basic human right, is to be loved and accepted. So I didn't get that, and I looked for that love and that validation in all of the wrong places. Growing up, I developed a drug addiction, I developed an alcohol addiction, and I was sexually promiscuous. If you look at statistics for children who are sexually abused, they can go into prostitution, they can, become highly sexually promiscuous and have criminal behavior. All of these statistics are extremely alarming, and I had all sorts of problems. I had issues with self-harm behavior and severe depression. And what did I want to do? I wanted to be in an industry where my face was out there because I felt really bad about myself. And I thought that if someone could just see me and tell me that I was beautiful, that then I could finally have that love and acceptance that I craved, right? And so my mom developed an alcohol problem while I was growing into my teens, and I eventually had to go live with my dad, because the abuse was so bad in my home. So I did get into modeling eventually, and found out that that was not a very glamorous career. I was raped when I was modeling, and there were a lot of similarities in the modeling industry that it paralleled with my childhood, because in the modeling industry, which is kind of what they were showing me, it's a very psychologically damaging industry. And with the models themselves, what they like to do is they like to manipulate the models. And they so for example, a typical day was like, I would go in there and they would say, wow, you look really great, but can you lose, 10 pounds? So it was like, they want to bring you up and then they want to put you back down. And that's how it was every single day. And so my entire time in there, my eating disorder got worse and worse and worse until I developed anorexia nervosa. So the funny thing was, right, this is not funny, the more weight that I lost, the more I worked. And no one in the industry ever said to me, you have a problem, you're sick, you need help. They said, no, you look great, we're going to book you for more jobs. So I just dove deeper into my addictions, and I kept getting sicker and sicker. At the same time, my mother was getting worse with her alcohol problem, and she eventually died. So that was a turning point in my life when you see someone close to you die of their addiction. And I had to make a decision in my career, because although I was doing really well in terms of success, I was extremely sick, mentally, physically, emotionally, right? And so that had become my identity. And they say there's a very high price that you pay for success sometimes, and I wasn't willing to pay that price. So when my mother passed away, I left the modeling industry, and for 2 years, I went through recovery with no one around me. No one from the modeling industry even talked to me anymore, and I got recovered. And it was a major transformation in my life. I started to write, and I came out and began my work with the National Eating Disorder Association and told my story. And it was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me, right? Because I found out who I really was. Because I thought that I was that. I thought that I was this model, this person, but I really had no idea who I was. And I had no idea who I was since I was a child, right? Because I began all those disordered behaviors. So recovery was an enormous gift, and it taught me who I really was. It helped me to form my real identity. And spirituality was a big component of that. Writing was a big component, and telling my story. So yeah, I just want to give you a little brief story there and let you know that you can recover from anything. Take it from me. Because I kind of feel like I went through the gamut of everything, and full recovery is totally possible from anything, whether it's abuse, PTSD, alcoholism, drug addiction. I've fully recovered. I have been recovered from drug and alcohol for 4 years now, and my eating disorder for almost 3 years. So you can fully recover, and you can be an advocate for any issue that you want to. Let me tell you, because I'm on fire for change here. So I fully believe in you. And National Eating Disorder Association Week is this week, so don't forget to check out NEDA, nationaleatingdisorders.org.
So we can see in the film all the different ways that we're manipulated into being insecure about what we look like and who we are and what our value is as a person, where that value comes from. But I think if we really want to change it, we see even through these stories the very real way that it hurts people, not just people who struggle with eating disorders. They can be up to 20% in a lifetime. Struggle with eating disorder. But the other 80% don't get off scot-free either. Just because they don't meet the criteria for eating disorder doesn't mean that they don't feel the pressure, they don't send the same messages, that make them feel bad about themselves, and question their value. So I think it's really important to be an agent of change. Like Nikki said, now she's an advocate, she's here with us tonight. And I think there's little things that you can do too. I think that what you can do is, in your communication to important people in your life, rather than compliment them for the way they look, compliment them for who they are, and what they do, and how they make you feel when you're around them. When you hear people fat shaming, or saying, oh, do these jeans make you look fat? You look beautiful because you are beautiful. And those are the responses, right? We need to completely shift the way we value ourselves and other people. It's really, really hard. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's not going to happen by accident. But we can also do things like really challenge the myth that being thin makes you happy, because it doesn't. It doesn't. Ladies, when you were at your thinnest, were you at your happiest?
Is that my most miserable? Right? Because there's no idea, there's no size that ever makes you happy, right? Because you can be whatever X size. It doesn't, you're just like, you can have X amount of money or X amount of whatever number of anything. That doesn't make you happy. What really makes you happy is in your soul, right? Right? So, like, somebody tell me, when you visualize your ideal life, what does that look like? Come on, guys. I know you do. I know you.
I don't know. So I don't know. I feel like having an addictive personality is okay, but I don't know. I feel like most of these cases with eating disorders, there's like an emptiness that you have to fill. Most of it is like, you know. So I don't know. I read this article on, well, it was on Tumblr, but it was like online. There was like science blogs and stuff. But there was like this paper that they posted. It was on the you know, that was up there, and it said that what's it called? Emotional pain or rejection, your body almost it gets processed as physical pain. And then there's most addictions are the reason we develop addictions, or like the negative types of addictions, is because we're trying to fill in that lack of happiness, and so I don't know. I feel like you can also have some sort of healthy addictions, I guess, where it's like you're trying to develop, let's say you do a sport, like you have like the surf bug, or you're doing rock climbing or something like that. You just it's like this, So I guess having that, you can have healthy addictions, but so I guess with maybe the first thing one has to solve is like the inner battles that we have. Lots of people have, we all have our own demons, and so yeah.
We all have our own demons. We all have our own things to overcome, right? So on that point, what do you feel? I find that spirituality really helped me, right? Because I felt like I was one big void, and I was trying to fill it with everything, with vanity, with money, with trying to be famous, or I was also a workaholic, I thought that success would make me really, really happy, and it just left me extremely miserable. With sex, with food, or depriving myself of food, and everything in the end just left me really, really empty. And the only thing that has sustained me, for what I believe in, is God, right? Is spirituality. And that is the only thing that has kept me balanced. And so everyone believes in something different, but it is that higher power that has kept me grounded through everything. So what is it for you that keeps you, that you feel keeps you fulfilled?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to. Well, it's because some people don't believe in God, and so I don't know. I think there's this dilemma where it's like, what do you do to help you get through things in life? Like that's, I guess most people, I guess the awe-inspiring. I think that's one of the that's what gets me sometimes. I'm just just being like tripping on life, just knowing that it's all gone soon. Death is just, it's a quick, it's gonna, everybody dies. I think that's the thing that kind of puts everything into perspective, where it's like, sometimes like I might feel, alone and stuff, or, like I need people, but in reality, at the end of it, it's like, you're born alone and you die alone type thing, so everybody has this journey that everybody has to go through. And so I guess what keeps me grounded is just, I guess science, science and just the whole, just all, the awe-inspiring beauty of the natural world, I guess.
Okay, so
Yeah, the one thing that definitely keeps me grounded would be my family. Just like Carolyn said with her sister, I'm very close with my mother, and so what keeps me grounded would definitely be my family.
did anyone else want to share?
Yeah. My purpose. So, and by that I mean I don't mean to sound extra, but I feel like I know what I'm brought to Earth to do. As weird as that sounds. So that's what keeps me going every single day. Besides my passion for helping others and inspiring other people and motivating everybody to remember that we all have potential to be something great in this life. And another thing that keeps me grounded is my family for sure. I'm close to my mom too. I love her. And yeah, that's really what. And school. I love school too. I love education.
Yeah, I would definitely say school too, and I know that might sound weird, but yeah, school has definitely been. When I was struggling with my eating disorder, my parents ended up setting up an appointment for me at the Eating Disorder Center, San Diego, and I'll never forget sitting there and one of the representatives, kind of questioning me and asking me, are you willing to take off, like, a year of school to really, dedicate, to your recovery? And, I guess that was kind of a moment for me where, I had all these ambitions and I didn't want that to be something that, just another thing on the list that my bulimia took away from me. And I think, so school has really, been something that's helped me in this process and keeping, those visions and goals for myself.
I guess your question has a lot of layers to it, and I think you're right on in the sense that our research does show that in most addictive behaviors there's a genetic predisposition. We're in alcoholism, 60% of the variability in alcoholism is genetically predisposed. In eating disorders as well, there's research has shown that there's likely a strong genetic predisposition to that, which makes how that works is that it just makes some people more sensitive to that kind of thing, right? So what happens is we all live our lives and we encounter hardships and obstacles, and sometimes the coping skills that we have to deal with those things work for us, and other times they don't. And so what happens is when we don't have the internal resources that we need to cope with these obstacles, then what we do is we tend to look for external things to help us out. And so if you don't have the coping skills that you need, sometimes you may turn to alcohol just to numb out the pain and get you through. In the same way, eating disorders can also fill that void. And Nikki said earlier that the Bulimia came from best friend. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard that from clients with eating disorders, because it's stable, it's secure, and you have total control over it, at least you think. So until you don't, right? But everybody, I believe, does the best that they can, right? And so what I think is, with coping skills, the question is just to, when you're engaging in behaviors that are unhealthy, that cause you loss, that cause you not to be able to live to your potential, then I always encourage people to go to counseling, talk to someone that you care about, trust, get some advice, and try to find a way to learn some new coping skills, some new tools, so that you don't have to use the things that are hurting you. And that way sometimes it makes it a little crazy. anybody else have any other questions? Okay. All right. So listen, this was one of the few different events that we have for NEDA, eating disorders awareness week. Which I will now read. I will read to you help with these classes. Okay, so after tonight on Thursday evening in McMahon House, Nikki will be doing our keynote speech. And Nikki, what's the title of your speech?
It's called Who Am I? It's going to be about identity.
And oh, and yes, and tomorrow, actually, right here at the top of the arcade from
Thursday.
on Thursday,
11 to
11 to 1. Yes, I will be there, up there at the top. So please come by, get screened for eating disorders. Right? Okay. And then I also wanted to do a couple plugs here. If this is an important issue for you, I am going to be starting a positive body image group really soon. So if you're interested, please come get a flyer for it. If you know someone who might be interested, please take one. I'd be happy to know. And then I also wanted to mention, Nikki's book is coming out pretty soon.
So my book is coming out in a couple of months, and it's called Washed Away from Darkness to Light. So we have a sign-up sheet. If you could please leave your email address, and I will send you an update as to its release. I would really appreciate it to keep in touch with you guys.
Okay, and thank you everyone on the panel for coming here tonight.
Guys, thank you for coming out.
Yes, and thank you for spending the evening with us. We sure do appreciate it.